The fourth and last stage is the human. Man's body is also a combination of all three stages, but mind awareness only begins in the human stage. The animal has much intelligence, but is not aware of it as a quality within him. Man, the human, was first controlled by instinct. For millions of years he had no mind awareness. He had no creative ability whatsoever, and not even enough sense of rhythm to desire to beat a drum. The desire of the savage to beat a drum is the first evidence of spiritual unfolding in man. Man, the human, began at the dawn of consciousness a few thousands of years ago. He became slightly aware of a creative force outside of himself, then more fully so, through the drumbeat stage to the more extensive recognition of universal rhythm in the four-stringed lyre, up to a comprehension of the diatonic scale in the 15th century. A sense of beauty as seen through the eyes had developed much earlier than that, but the jungle sense of cruelty, brutality, and blood pleasure still remained in man in the mass, even while his culture was unfolding, and still remains with a very large percentage of the race. Marauding tribes have become marauding nations, and man-killing by man is still done on such a large scale for greed and power only, that the human race has no justification whatsoever for thinking its present civilization as a whole to be in any other than its early barbarian stage. Many, however, have arrived at a very high intellectual point, and a few have reached almost to its summit. It is through these few that thousands of others are being awakened to that light of their own oneness with the Source, and it is through these that the race will finally achieve such intensive God-awareness that the man-killing stage of today will have become impossible. A more comprehensive and expanded explanation of man's early unfolding can be found in God will work with you, but not for you. The above is cited solely for the reason that the new knowledge given in this chapter will give every man a better comprehension of how he can lift himself above the present stage. Having thus explained the reason for this interlude, we will now return to the climax of the knowledge for which this chapter has been written. Message carrying flesh and bone. It is commonly said that man is made of flesh and bone. That is not the whole story. There is muscular flesh, and there is what is known as neuromuscular flesh. There is also bone and the marrow of bone. Just plain flesh and bone are the physical working parts of the body, but much that is in the body is created for the express purpose of conveying messages from the mind within each cell to its surrounding ring, and the nerve flesh which conveys messages to the farthest extremities of the body with the speed of light. The vegetable kingdom is practically all flesh and bone, but even that has an intricate intercommunicating system which is composed of very different kind of flesh, a kind which corresponds to the nervous system in animal and man. The muscular and bone flesh, which is used for utility purposes, that which we call meat in chickens and cattle, is entirely different from the flesh of the heart, brain, spinal cord, and nervous system, and also of arteries, veins, and bone marrow. The blood is also flesh of the body, as other parts of it are, and it comes from the mind center of thought rings which constitute the heart. That too is a flesh which is mostly concerned with its message-carrying purpose, both for bodybuilding and mind-thinking purposes. That flesh is so sensitive to tensions and strains of unbalanced actions and emotions that its normal thought ring cells quickly change, or their centers shift to eccentric positions very quickly, The slightest emotional disturbance acts upon them in such a manner that they seem to have an intelligent understanding of such tensions, for they immediately convey that tension to the heart, brain, and stomach, with a consequent equal upsetting. All message-carrying flesh and bone moral must have the rhythms of happiness and joyousness in order that their normally balanced electrical state will extend normal balance to the cells that they are continually creating and controlling, as well as informing as to purpose. If people only realize that a happy body cannot exist as a normal body without a happy state of mind, there would be no mental cases or insanity, stomach ulcers, or heart diseases. One little example of such effects should be enough. Consider the red blood corpuscles as that example. The blood is the basic living flesh of the body. Strangely enough, but appropriately, its red blood cells are microscopic rings with holes centering them, such as pictured in example A, shown above. Emotional or other disturbances, even inherited disturbances, which sufficiently upset the balance of the body metabolism, will break openings in these rings and make them appear to be sickle-formed, as shown in example B. The little white discs, which constitute the white corpuscles of the blood, appear to have frayed edges as though they were moth-eaten. Anemia and leukemia follow such abnormalities. The blood is of first importance of all of the elements which compose the body. The nervous system could be entirely paralyzed and the body would still function, but the blood has deep instinctive awareness of its existence, and the body, which does not have a happy rhythmic blood condition, cannot possibly retain its normalcy. The blood immediately feels every mental and physical tension it is subjected to. One of the very first evidences of temporary or permanent degeneration of an individual or race is the breaking down of the normal thought rings of the blood cells from circular to sickle-shaped rings. Any abnormality or unbalance in man's thinking and his decisions which cause unbalanced actions is first shown in blood cells. If this abnormality is not corrected by the individual during his lifetime, his children can inherit the tendency. The whole human race could be destroyed that way if the tendency is not reversed by balancing the unbalanced condition. These two diagrams are reprints from Scientific America. Next of importance is the heart flesh itself. There are muscular parts of the heart which perform physical functions only, as other flesh does. But a great part of the heart is composed of an independently living kind of flowing flesh, which is not dependent upon the whole body, as all other parts are. The blood is the most potent of all of the mind message carriers of the body. If you cut any part of your body out and preserve it from decay in a salt solution, it can be thus preserved for a long time, even though it is as dead as the flesh in your deep freeze is dead. Not so, however, with that part of your heart which is made up of what the textbook calls specific or autonomous neuromuscular flesh. If you put that in a proper electric conducting medium, such as a salt solution, it will live a very long time, indefinitely perhaps, if the solution remains properly conducive. It does not die as other flesh dies, so long as it is held in a conductive medium. The body really has no intelligence, but it is so close to the mind as a carrier of power and creative messages that it seems to have an intelligence. No, I read it wrong. The blood really has no intelligence, but it is so close to the mind as a carrier of power and creative messages that it seems to have intelligence of its own. There are other parts of the heart which are likewise intended for the mental and physical state of the body, which are utterly absent in all vegetable life and less conspicuously developed in lower animal life. Such parts are the sinus node, the right and left bundle branch, and the intricate intertwining nerves, veins, and muscles of the lower heart. More important still is the fact that the blood is placed in columns or shafts, which center all body extensions, in such positions that those centers are the location of magnetic stillness, and as such are of zero electric potential. Next in our consideration is the brain flesh, which surrounds the thought rings of the central switchboard of the entire bodily nerve system. This with the bone marrow, which assists message-carrying intercommunications between the Creator's mind and the imaged form He is creating, constitute quite a new science in itself, which is more needed by the medical profession than by our layman students. For this reason, we cannot devote as much space to this vital subject as we would like to do. Our present purpose is served by exemplifying the fact that every illness of the body is made in the image of one's thinking, and the actions which follow mental or sense decisions. We can retain our body normalcy, or we can easily damage it by unbalancing our thinking and our normal way of life. If, therefore, one is ill, he should first look to the cause of it in himself. If people only realize that a happy body cannot exist without a happy state of mind, there would be no mental cases or insanity, much less headaches and other ailments. There are two other shafts of zero potential besides the arterial and spinal ones, which center the chest. These are the shafts which convey food to the stomach, and the one which carries air to the lungs. The membranous flesh, which constitutes these tubes, is not like a plastic container. It has great conductive supersensitivity. It performs two separate and seemingly impossible opposite offices, for it both insulates that which should be insulated and conducts that which should be conducted. One is very often mistaken in assuming that a badly upset stomach is due to food unwisely eaten, when the fact is that unhappy rhythms have been the cause. The reaction has not alone been confined to the digestive functions. Its main cause may lie in emotional disturbance, business worry, worry of conscience, fear of many other states of unbalance. Even the food one eats should be happy. It should be cooked with love and eaten joyfully, and there should be a joyful realization of love in one's deep breathing and exhalation during the process of taking food into one's body. The food you eat becomes blood and flesh of your body, and the manner in which you eat it and your mental attitude while eating it decides your blood count, the balance between acidity and alkalinity of your digestive machinery, and your entire metabolism. These four great body shafts have much more responsibility than just performing physical mechanical purposes. Please realize that fact. Your typewriter is a machine which will supposedly operate just as perfectly if you are angry, but even your typewriter could register your anger and be damaged by it. Whatever your mental condition is, your body condition records and reflects it as truly as a mirror equally images an angry you or a happy you. Your mind is you, and your body is the record of your thoughts and actions. Your body is what your mind electrically extends to it for recording. Future generations should learn to think in such terms. They should discard the present concept of mind and matter, and substitute mind, thought, and action in place of it. Someday men will fully comprehend that matter is but the motion of thought. The substance of this chapter is for the purpose of making you realize that your mind reaches to every part of your body, not only your arms, legs, fingers, and toes, but to every microscopic cell in your body. You can instantly order your arms or fingers to obey a command from you, because large enough nerves connect your switchboard with them. There's not one cell in your body you cannot reach, however, with orders from your mind. You may have to concentrate long and often to do it, but you can do it. A simple experiment to prove that is to look concentratedly upon one part of your body, such as the end of one finger. Demand of it that warm blood shall collect there, and it will, after very few efforts. Many have done this. Another experiment for convincing you will be to order your ears to move, and they will in due time, just as Paderewski orders his fingers to do 50 times as much as you can with yours. Now apply this to your headache, first making sure that you are in tune with the infinite and not out of tune with it, and that you are not violating any law of nature which continues its cause. Your headache must disappear. It cannot do otherwise. Nature is normal. It balances all unbalanced effects if it is given a chance. However, it is useless to try to cure an unbalanced condition mentally unless the unbalanced cause is first replaced with the joyous rhythms which approach the God-mind ecstasy. Now that you know where your mind is in relation to your body, you have the basis of what Jesus knew when he extended his balance to the unbalanced thinking of other bodies and gave them his balance. Unbalanced bodies cannot remain unbalanced if one's mind is balanced and joyous to the point of ecstasy. It is our earnest hope that each of you will now more fully comprehend the meaning of the command to seek the kingdom of heaven within you. It is also our earnest hope that the medical profession will apply this knowledge to every patient and not treat his physical unbalance alone, while allowing its mental cause to be ignored. The physician is the logical mind healer, for he has knowledge of effects which the mind healer cannot possibly have. One cannot go to God abstractly. You must know what you wish to ask for, and know how to do your part in working with him. Next chapter, the material nucleus of the atom. The foregoing chapters have gradually prepared you to comprehend that the Rutherford Bohr atom, which is symbolized in Figure 58, has no place in nature. This chapter is to tell why not one single fact of nature supports it in structure, nor justifies it in principle. We have stated before that this electric universe has been constructed entirely by the electric wave. Therefore, any theory of motion or matter, which is outside of electric wave mechanics and construction, is invalid. If human reasoning, by the greatest of the world's thinkers, built this impossible concept, there must be something very basically lacking in knowledge of our universe to make it possible for thinking people to form such a concept. And there is something basic, many things in fact, which sense observation alone can never tell to man. We will enumerate these also step by step. Number 1. Nowhere in nature does motion in any three-dimensional mass revolve around a common center. All mass is made up of pairs of ring units which are joined together in parallel planes to create hemispheres. Each ring has its gravity center, and each mass has its dividing equator. Adjoining rings, which form spherical masses, cause gravity centers of these rings to seemingly become gravity shafts. All motion in every hemispherical mass spins in parallel planes, which are 90 degrees from the gravity shaft of that mass. This means that all motion in any spherical mass spins around its gravity shaft in parallel planes, and not around a common center of gravity, which supposedly controls the whole mass, but actually controls motion in the plane of the equator only. This also means that nature is bilateral and not radial. All mass is divided by an equator, and the 4 pairs of rings which constitute that mass are arranged in plane layers on either side of that equator. All pairs are sex-conditioned by the divided spectrum, which place the red units of each pair in one hemisphere and the blue units in the other hemisphere. The red units of a mass do not revolve around a common center of gravity and spin through the blue side to complete its orbit, as the units of the Rutherford-Bohr atom do, as shown in Figure 58. Nor do the blue units spin through the red. That would be as much against nature as it would be for humans to change their sex during every daily cycle. The invisible universe is based upon the cube in relation to its control of motion. The stillness of gravity, therefore, its points are extended to appear as a shaft, is always at an angle of 90 degrees from its electric thought ring extensions. Never anywhere in nature does any electric effect reach over to another center than its own. The 3 intersecting planes of the cube will not allow of such a crossing. If you examine the cleavages of a cube crystal, you will not find them radiating from a center. The senses have been too much affected by the symmetry of light radiation from a star or from the hexagonal radiating arms of a snow crystal, and many similar effects, which the senses too readily accept. It is time that we at least begin to doubt the evidence of our senses as making hasty, obvious conclusions. And now the Rutherford-Bohr atom with its little nucleus in the center. And this is the illustration of the radial universe concept. Another cause of confusion by the senses in this respect is the fact that all planets in a system revolve around a common center of gravity. These are rings of motion, however, which spin around holes in which their controlling center is located. Every part of the mass of every planet, however, spins around its own center, which is on the gravity shaft, and always in parallel planes, not intersecting ones, which would be necessary if all parts moved around a common center. If you look at an electric current in a vacuum tube, you will see parallel rings extending from the cathode to the anode, like buttons strung upon a thread. Each of these rings is controlled by its own center of gravity in its own plane. Each ring is a unit of a cycle, and it is necessary for pairs of cycles to unite to form a mass, or for 4 pairs to unite to form a sphere. When a sphere is thus formed, it is bilateral, as all things else in nature are bilateral. It extends its right arm and its left one to form a shaft. Each point of gravity in that shaft is also the fulcrum of a lever, which its ring is. The fulcrum is still and in all the power. The fulcrum is still, and in it is all the power, which its spinning level ring expresses. But the energy thus expressed is not in the moving ring. It is in the fulcrum of gravity which centers it. Electricity records mind thought in rings of light which spin around a magnetic center of still invisible light. All motion in all the universe spins around mind centers, which become shafts as motion extends. If you now look at the wave with this thought in mind, you will likewise see pairs of rings strung on the wave shaft of gravity, which extends as thought rings of motion extend, to center and control the motion of each ring from that center, and to become a shaft of gravity for each mass which is formed by the amalgamation of ring pairs. By a careful examination of the construction of an electric current and an electric wave, there is no part of it which orbits of units intersect the planes of the orbits of other units, or of masses which are formed by the union of pairs, nor do any of them share their gravity centers with other units. As there is no precedent in the electric current or wave of nature to justify the multiplane concepts shown in Figure 58, and as there is no precedent in the electric current or wave to justify the presence of material nuclei in the atomic units which constitute mass, such an impossible and unnatural concept should be expunged from human thinking. And I'm at 27 minutes, so I'm going to stop here and begin with number 3 in the next series.